beautiful person.
Hello, beautiful person. How are you?
Good. Where are you in the world?
I am in Napa Valley
Right. Holds,
because I'm
holds. Hi, beautiful person. That's one delay on one of the platforms. Let me go and mute it on the other ones.
glamour.
Uh-huh. This is behind the scenes. Okay, go. You're in Napa. I hope you're tipsy.
I am not tipsy because I don't really drink, which is a
Oh, you
strange
don't?
thing to do when you go to Napa, but it's so beautiful here. I am
Insert the
turning
suspicious emoji on Twitch in between.
suspicious. Yes. And I'm turning 55 on Friday. So my husband whisked me away for celebration and frivolity, but I never pass up a great convo with the Jenna. Absolutely not.
Well, okay. Oh, God. Well, I'm not feeling bad that I'm like jumping into.
No, no.
Also, like, I pretend sometimes I'm part of your marriage. At least that's how I behave when I it really is. It's a trouble when we have to have an urgent virtual what's happening conversation. Now, D,
It's
this is the thing that has smoked me out of now going on Insta Live on
mm,
at It's Jenna more than any of the and it's not like that it's like smoked me out, but it's like that's the thing that I'm like, okay, because I actually believe this conversation has is a real learning moment for
I think
us.
so too. I think so too.
And I think it's like, how many times I've been like, this is what the Democratic Party has to do, or fuck this, or blah, blah, blah. Like so much to say. But this, like, this is we can go to first grade on this. And I think something
Yes.
productive can come out of it.
I think so too.
Um, so before we dive in, a real quick table set. This is my beautiful f- fucking national treasure of a friend, Denise Hamilton. She is the author of a book with a very important title. It is called it's called
Indivisible.
Indivisible. I know that, but let me read the log line. I know it's indivisible, but the log line is how to forge our differences into a stronger future. Like we could need anything more. Um, Ever, but right now, ever. And Denise is a friend of mine, but also, like, I was trying to think about an adjective to describe you, of which I really can't, but there's this sense of, like, clairvoyance to you, and you know what we don't Denise and I don't spend a lot of time talking about our relationship with faith. Side note, guys, I know tonight is Kol Nidre, and I did some praying downstairs over Brussels sprouts with my kid just now. I forgot, but I also believe that Kol Nidre is about shining our personal silver and getting underneath all of the things, finding the silver underneath us that needs to just be seen. It's not I am not interpreting this. Jude does not interpret this holiday as guilt. So this
Mm,
is my offering on Kol Nidre is Denise in this conversation. Um, but she is has brings a sense of like joy to everything that as a white person still doing this kind of work, I have not been able to appreciate. But I think a layer of the onion is being peeled off, I think, in the 24 hours just because of this one conversation with
mhm.
Coates and Klein that I want to talk to you about. So Denise is a national treasure. We'll just leave it at that, and you'll see why momentarily. That's
No
that
pressure.
that's the table set. Yeah, no pressure. Um, how do we wanna do this? How do we wanna have this conversation?
I want to hear your first take. Like, what did this conversation make you feel?
Okay. So one friendly reminder to everyone out there, we are on Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, whole host of Instagram, lives, uh, Substacks. If you are watching this any one of the platforms, please ask your questions, provide your comments. Like we are here for the whole thing. We'll make sure we see them all. Um, Denise and I are here to talk about what I feel like the larger thing is the post Charlie Kirk murder collective wrestle, we'll call
Mhm.
it. And I got on the phone with Denise, like, I don't know, probably that day. "What the fuck? What?" And she was like, "Shut up. Don't say anything.
Don't say anything.
Don't say anything." And that's actually what she it's actually what she does to me a lot. Like, it's like a little horse collaring. Like, she just, like, grabs me right there. She's like, "Not yet." There's been all the things, there's been the
Mm,
reflection, there's been time for folks to emote around it. It's certainly been politicized. And then Ezra Klein wrote an article about how Charlie Kirk, I'm going to butcher the summary, but basically how he was doing the politicking that is needed today, that he was, he's trying to engage with folks.
mhm.
Put a pin in that. Then Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote another piece on Vanity Fair. Hold on, I have the exact titles of all these things. Um, Titled Charlie Kirk Redeemed, A Political Class Finds Its Lost Cause. And basically, Coates then challenges Ezra and says, how could you look at what he's said? Broadly, we all know what he said. We all know the stuff. Then Ezra goes, oh shit, I'm being called out by somebody I love and respect. They have a meeting on Ezra's very big, huge podcast, of which I have been a follower. Haven't entirely agreed with him over the years, but like I'd say like 80 to 90%
Mhm.
I'm aligned. And I don't think it went very well.
Mm-mm. Well, I think it went well, but that's the optimist in me. So go ahead. But you don't think it went very well. Tell me how you think it
Okay,
went.
fine, fine, fine. Maybe it wasn't that it didn't not go well. It went unproductively. It could have been
Mm,
okay. So this is where I'm a little bit, I don't know where to start, but if I could
okay.
just come out with the hardest question, which I know I can,
Do it.
is Denise Hamilton.
Mhm.
What is the thing that Coates didn't actually say to Ezra?
Well, I think I love this conversation because it was a true conversation between friends. And you know how I feel about this. Like some of these like really difficult, complicated, prickly conversations we have with the weirdest strangers on the internet and it doesn't move the ball forward at all.
At all.
But it was two friends who were trying to understand each other and who were trying to connect to each other. And who didn't in real time, but I feel like did after. I think a lot that was said needed to be processed, needed to be thought about more. In
Mm.
our age of like, we want everything to be, tied up with a beautiful bow at the end of the hour and 40, that
What are the
that
three
wasn't
books you have that you recommend? Right.
right, exactly. Like that's what we want, but that was never going to happen in this conversation. And so I thought it was a fantastic conversation because it really revealed what the problems are, what the real problems are. And I don't think, I don't ever choose peace over justice. That's not a thing I ever choose. So I love excavating. I love digging out what the ugly, complicated, frustrating pieces are so that you can really look at them. And I think there were several moments in this conversation that should give us all pause. Like we should all be like, how do I think about that? How do we feel about that? What do we think should happen here? Or how should this be handled? And that to me is the best kind of conversation. So I thought it was great because it wasn't perfect. I think in its imperfection, that's what made it really wonderful. I think that Tanahasi wanted to say way more that he didn't say. And I think that Ezra wasn't ready to hear what Ta-Nehisi was saying. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so I don't believe in like, like, hey, baby, eat this steak. Like, if you can't eat the steak, it doesn't, like, me laying out the steak for you doesn't help you. I think what he was trying to do was trying to plant seeds, because I think Ezra is very important in our political dialogue. Like, he just is. And so, yes, I think he could have picked him up and, like a rag doll, slapped his head against the wall. I don't think that would have been
Ezra
effective,
wasn't ready
you
to
know?
hear what Ta-Nehisi was saying. I'm looking at all the different screens. I'm trying to track all the comments. And if I am looking around, it's not because I'm not paying
Yes.
attention. It's because
No,
I'm
no, 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 no.
doing the
no.
thing.
like he did. What did Ta-Nehisi not say?
What did
Right?
Ta-Nehisi not say? And why didn't he say it?
I think he didn't say it because he knew Ezra couldn't hear it. And I don't
What
think the
couldn't
I think the conversation was like, there's a conversation that you can have for the audience, and there's a conversation you can have with the person. I think there's a reason that Ta-Nehisi wrote the article and responded to Ezra in this way, because of Ezra's significance in the political dialogue. And I think he had this conversation as an effort to enlighten, or to pull back the blinds that Ezra, in my opinion, is living behind. And I think he chose not to do that in an aggressive or hostile way that he could have absolutely done. I think he was very clear. I think he said some things that Ezra probably didn't sleep that night, because he had to chew and ruminate and let them move. Like what I felt when the conversation was over. What I felt was like Ta-Nehisi was explaining to him that Santa Claus doesn't really exist.
Right.
There is no Easter bunny. Like, this idea, and quite frankly, this is a problem in the party, in this big tent, right? There have always been people that have done important, incredible, significant work that didn't win, that did not win, that did not win in their lifetime, that never lived to see women vote, that never lived to see gay marriage, that never lived to see a Black president. Like, there are people who worked their entire lives and never got to see the fruit of their labor. And I think Ezra is from a kind of ilk that has never had to pay the price for his politics. And so now that we're in this season that the bill is due and you got to pay the price, I think there was a weirdness. It's almost like he admires the cruelty, because if the cruelty gets you the victory, that's all that matters. And I think what Ta-Nehisi said to me that I reflected on was, no, no, you do not throw your values out the door to win. You're not going to win every round, every season, every era. And the way that Ezra, in my opinion, like, dismissed the analysis by saying, "Oh, well, you're panning too far out." No, we're not. We study history because history teaches us what to do in these situations. And I think there's a danger that Ezra is in my opinion. He didn't ask me. We're not friends, but be careful that you don't admire your opponent too much, that you don't envy them, right? Like, I think this idea of being envious of what Charlie Kirk had is problematic. I think it's deeply problematic for him. And I think that Ta-Nehisi was picking up on that and trying to help him process through that. Like, listen, this idea that you're always supposed to win gave me the way that Ezra presented it gave me actual deep concern. You cannot build a coalition that is based on throwing your values out every time it doesn't go your way. And he didn't say this, but this is what I heard. And I had to sit with this and process, like, where this was coming from in my mind. The people that have gone before us that did the work but didn't make it, they weren't losers. They weren't weak. They weren't spineless. They weren't failures. They were people that did the work and planted the foundation and the platform that Ezra stands on today. And it felt deeply disrespectful to me to process, you know, this season, this one season, as some kind of endemic, like catastrophic character failure. And that's what I think Ta-Nehisi was trying to get him to see, and he was pretty rejecting of the concept. I hope that he's thinking about it now, and that's really sitting with him. But again, if you never had to pay for what you have in the same way, then you don't always understand what the price was. We need Ezra to be clear. And one of the things he said that really struck me was when he said, "I'm not sure what my role is." And I actually respected that because I kind of wanted to
I thought
say,
it was
then
the first vulnerability that I've actually seen
yes.
real,
And
real.
I only think that happened because of the way Ta-Nehisi engaged with him, right? Like I know people wanted him to be more harsh and more angry and more frustrated. And it's like, no, like we need Ezra to understand his role. And if he doesn't, we need him to not talk. And I really I mean that with all my heart. Like either do good work or do no work. But do not sabotage the work that others do. And so I hope my deep prayer is that this conversation fed a period of kind of introspection that I think he just needs to have about how he thinks about this season, how he thinks about the cycle of change. It is an ebb and flow. I'll give you a perfect example. The perfect example of this, and you and I talked about this, you'll remember when George Floyd was murdered and everybody ran, they were changing their vision statements and adding values, and they were putting up signs and they were funding, promising pledges and whatever. What did I say to you, Jenna? I said,
What
this
did you
won't last. I said,
and
this
what did
won't
I
last.
say?
What did you say? You said, no, I think it's going to be great. And I said, it's no chance that it will last. And every Black professional that I know, we had that conversation. This will not last. This is a season. What work can be done in this season?
But
We
you gave a
all
figure
understood that it
that it
was
won't last.
not going to last because that's not the way change works, not this kind of change. The pendulum swings back and forth and back and forth. And Ezra wants to believe in the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus, like with his sheer will. And if you say the right 7 words and you throw out a group of people that you support, that you're going to make the pendulum, you're going to stop that pendulum from swinging. And what I heard Ta-Nehisi saying is, nah, man, the pendulum swings and we understand that it swings. And so what are we going to do in the midst of that swinging?
Okay. Um, can I work backward?
Yeah.
You gave not only did you say this won't last, and I was like, yes, it will. All these white people are buying all these books. And like my Trump voting uncle just said the word supremacy, like it was on his tongue. And you're like, no, 60% of these people leave. And I was like, no, D, no. You're like, yeah. They're gonna go. They're gonna go. Of which I don't know if we're at 60%. We might be at like 97%. But so yes, I remember that. You know, I do want to talk about Ezra's vulnerability of saying, I don't actually know what I'm supposed to do here, or what my role is. And here on the Land Event on Thursday nights at 8:30, we have a phenomenal show called Hey Brother, which is hosted by Johnny Cole. And it is all about men being vulnerable, just role modeling vulnerability, talking about how they feel shitty about themselves or they've never felt like enough or what that means, relationships with dads, moms, like the whole thing. And that feels so critical in these moments. Like that, I felt like was a real gem. And I didn't watch the conversation because I was driving, but the bits that I did see, it felt like a sincere friend on the other side of the table from
Yeah.
Ezra. And men
Yeah.
in general don't offer eye contact to each other long enough to be able to be like, tell me what's really going on. Oftentimes, if they're like the activity that they do watching the football game and they find out someone's, father's sick or someone's separating from their wife, like they just have those facts. They don't follow up with the like, how does that feel? And so I feel like that is a moment that I think we should lift up
Mhm.
because I do want to challenge the matrix that Ezra is navigating, which is going to come back to a me problem too, which is obviously part of the larger problem, which is I would say that Ezra was instrumental in an outsized way,
Mhm.
oversized, outsized, I don't know, large fucking slice of the pie way of
Mhm.
getting Biden to step aside.
Yeah,
I think he
I agree with
dropped
that.
Drop that article, drop that podcast. We were all thinking the thing, and he said it out loud.
Mhm.
So when you say pendulum, this guy can take some ownership, non-zero ownership over switching the ticket. Too late. Like, that's not the conversation we're having.
Right.
But why don't folks like Ezra and why aren't we comfortable with the long journey of progress? Is it just meritocracy? Is it just like, no, study, you get the thing, you get the job, you get the paycheck, you get the blah, da, 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 da. Like, why do we wrestle so much and not want to admit that we will never see the fruits of our labor?
Mhm. Because it's abnormal. Because it's unusual, right? I think a lot of what we talk about, like the male loneliness epidemic and the failure to launch and all of these social societal factors that we're experiencing right now, they're so painful because they're so unusual when the table has always been set for 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3. Then when you have that first time that you did the one, you did the one, you did the one, and what do you mean I have zero? What do you mean I only have one? Like that profound disappointment is real, is legitimate, is authentic, right? And I think that's what Ta-Nehisi was trying to get him to see is like, I hate to break it to you, but there's not always a rainbow at the end of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It doesn't always work out. Good people actually go to jail. Bad things happen to good people every day. And when you have a framework, and I want to be very gentle in how I say this, because it sounds harsher and more critical than it is, right? The reality is that there's a musculature that you develop with hardship, with unfairness, when you have regular exposure to unfairness that everyone doesn't have, right? And so to me, that's what Ta-Nehisi was trying to say the whole time. It's like, listen, newsflash, hate to break it to you, it doesn't always work out the way you want it to. And when you've had, not I don't want to use words like easy or privileged or whatever, but
You
because
can.
those things are
You
so
should.
triggering, they're so triggering. But this idea that Trayvon Martin can just be walking home eating some Skittles. And he can, like, literally, we have 8,000 stories like that of things just not working out, right? Even though the people were good and everybody tried really hard and everybody did their best, like that's just the way the world is, for most of the world. And so I think there's a space here of kind of acknowledging that there's a complexity here, an unfamiliar complexity. I shared this with you when we talked yesterday. There's this scene in Harry Potter, that one of the Harry Potter movies, where
Hold on. We're gonna get fancy. We're gonna find it. Go ahead.
are you gonna find it? Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah,
gosh, you're
yeah.
such a weirdo. You're such a weirdo. Okay,
Yeah, but I
so
think it's such a good analogy.
It's so good. So there are these carriages that appear to be drawn by something invisible. They cannot see what is pulling the carriages. The only two people that can see the creatures pulling the carriages are Luna and Harry. And they can only see the horses, they're skeletal horses. They can only see them because they have experienced death, because they have lived with and had to reckon with loss and death. That's the only reason they can see these creatures, right? And so this idea that you have to have gone through something to be able to recognize or see certain things, I think is really important. It's a very hard thing to absorb. We all think of ourselves as educated and exposed and smart and clever and all of these things, but it's not the same as experience, right? Experience means something. And I think this was an issue of experience. I think when you have a legacy of fighting for things that take decades, even a century to, or even multiple centuries to change, big things that require change, you develop this musculature of the ebb and the flow of it. And I just think that um, this kind of is an opportunity to be open to learn about an experience that you just don't have. You just don't, it's not the same. And to me, one of the beautiful things about being a human being, just one of the most beautiful things, is the fact that I can read what you wrote down. I don't have to crash into the wall. Somebody could come along and be like, "Hey, Denise, don't crash into the wall. If you go left over here," and like, we can learn from each other if we respect each other and we're willing to listen and learn from each other, right? And I think this is just a really beautiful example. I think um Ezra's willingness to have the conversation and Ta-Nehisi's willingness to kind of share this experience and this perspective, I am going to claim it. I think it's going to have all kinds of fruitfulness in the weeks and months and years to come. But I'm an optimist.
I know. Sorry, everybody. I had too many windows open and my computer froze. Um, yeah, I I think in the spirit of all of my blind spots and our collective blind spots, I want to move faster. I
Hmm.
wanted Coates to go faster because what I
Hmm.
felt like kept happening is Ta-Nehisi kept saying, "Yeah, but this dude said all these things that are built on the foundation of hate."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I felt, and I'm still afraid to say the thing, which is like, I am floored by the amount of people.
Yeah.
I'm floored by the interpretation of this.
Oh, I'm not. I'm not. I think, I've said this to you before. We're algorithmically
Wake the fuck
censored.
up.
No, we are algorithmically
Yes, we live in
censored.
different metaverses. I
We live
totally agree.
so as a black woman, I was dished up every horrible, nasty, terrible, racist, sexist, homophobic, any terrible thing he ever said was dished up to me on a silver platter. And there are a lot of people that that's not what they saw.
Yeah,
They saw him as a fierce defender of the faith because that's what was dished up to them.
I know.
So I'm not as surprised as you are, but I think because we are algorithmically censored and because we don't have the full story, that's why Ezra is so important. The decision to kind of collect the story, but then react in a way that redacts it in real time was a lot. That was a lot. And if he was my friend, I would say, Ezra, that was a lot. You could have said he's a fierce defender of his position. He was an advocate for his belief system. There were a lot of wonderful, glowing, positive things that could have been said, but saying that he did politics the right way, That was a lot.
Yeah, but so many people and, like, Denise, are we first off, I just wanna side note, in all the other spaces, everyone is just talking about how much they love you. So,
I'm
I
glad I can't see it. It would fog me. It would ruin me.
I'd be
Okay, go
like,
ahead.
"I know, I know, I know." Yeah, they're all saying that they love you. Um, but, but I do shit, what were we talking about? And okay, was the multiverse. Um, I think
Why
my
are people okay with it? Why are people you were
no, it was
surprised, yeah.
no, well, yeah, I'm okay if like 12 like one time this has happened to me not more than one time, but only one
Mhm.
time I went like to pretty extreme lengths to do something and say something is when there was like this moment where I got caught up in a conspiracy. I'm embarrassed now. About Wayfair selling
Mhm.
trafficking girls,
Yeah.
and they were selling them because there was, like, a tapestry that you could buy at, like, Home Goods for $70, and they were selling it for, like, 7,900, like, "Oh my god!" And I went wild on my Instagram stories,
Mm.
and it was one of my friends who was just like, "Jenna, are you sure?"
Are you
And, "Are
sure?
you sure? Pull that down, are you sure?" And I was so grateful and, like, ended up being embarrassed by it. And you've done that to me. And that is um the only investment of that love and generosity of yours is like a better day for somebody at some point, right? I mean, like I
Mhm.
love you no matter what, but like this stuff that we do, first off, y'all, like we do this just by ourselves on our conversation. And then we were like, there might be one other person. And based on the amount of people who are watching, I can tell you there's like more than two people who want to
Okay, love it,
listen
love
in
it.
on this. So we would be doing this solo. But um my question is like the part of Ezra and I that are like, come on, like when Ezra realizes how soft Coates was on him for
Mhm.
one, uh, saying, like I think the harshest thing he said to him was like, wasn't silent an option, silence an
Yeah.
option, which he went at like 2 minutes in. I'm like, let's go. But like when he realizes that like silence is always an option. He doesn't actually have the currency all the time. Sometimes he did, right? In that
Yeah.
like Kamala situation, like that
Yeah.
was, but
Yeah.
that was unexpected. It's not like he was like, let me see what I can do. He was just being
Sure.
authentic. Um, but the fact that like I felt like there was this discussion about red lines and humanity and how we cross bridges, which is the whole purpose of Land Abandoned, is the whole objective for why we have built this space where people come in and have curious, complicated conversations because nothing is clear. I don't care what anyone says. Yet, for me, I have red lines with folks.
Mhm.
And I feel like Coates and Ezra are sort of going back and forth on like where their red lines are because and I appreciated that Coates said he was like, I just want you to know there's probably things that if we put it in the middle of the table, you and I would both get up and walk away and not be willing to talk to each other about." And I think that's true. And I don't
Mhm.
know what that is between you and I. I have a feeling, I have a feeling it might sit in faith. I don't know though. I'm curious what
Mhm.
it is. We should have another side conversation to see if we can figure out what our red lines are with each other. But I think it's bullshit to say that there are, although in the peacekeeping field, there are people that you officially say, I can't go anywhere with these folks.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there is a subset of folks in the Christian faith who don't believe that dinosaurs are real.
Yeah.
And I, for like 2 years, was like, I'm not spending a minute of my time with them. Not a minute of my time. And then I was like, well, how about if I just not talk to them about paleontology?
Right.
We can still commiserate about water in our basements. We can still commiserate
Right.
around confusion around tariffs. We can still commiserate around like is like this whole idea of red lines because to me, Charlie Kirk has a filing cabinet from here to like the next zip code of red lines for
Mhm.
me.
Mhm.
And I was just so floored by the left just scooching out of the way
Mhm.
on this. And I'm not interested in like it's all been unpacked. And I think just like we all know how Melania feels about Trump, like everyone fucking knows.
Right.
But it felt like, does Ezra really know his red lines? Does Coates really have red lines? Do you have red lines?
Mhm. I definitely have red lines. 100%.
What are they?
Um, truth. Mm.
But
We
like, what about
can
dinosaurs?
well, the thing about dinosaurs is the fact that you don't believe that dinosaurs exist, and I do believe that dinosaurs exist, doesn't impact any
Mhm,
either
mhm,
one of our
mhm,
day-to-day
mhm,
lives.
mhm,
Doesn't
mhm.
cost us our freedom, doesn't cost us our liberty, our opportunity, doesn't, harm any of us. Right. So we can have let bring it on, sister. Show me all your slides. Tell me all your stories of why there's no dinosaurs. Like that I can sit with, but I can't sit with harm. You know, when and I personally, this idea of redacting the truth, changing what happened, we can disagree. Hey, I think it should be red and you think it should be green. Amazing, but you can't say like, you didn't show up to the meeting when I was there. Like you can't say you didn't do the thing when I know I saw it. Like that is a bridge too far for me. Right. And so this was deeply triggering for people, for most of the people that I know that called me kind of frustrated about this. It was because I come from the say it with your whole chest school of logic and appropriateness. Whatever you're going to do it gladly, do it loudly, do it confidently. I don't think Charlie Kirk was sorry about a single word that he said. I think he said it with his whole chest. So I think it's very strange to kind of now go back and say, well, no, that's not what he meant. And he didn't, we're taking it out of context. And why are y'all showing the quotes of his actual words? I find that really bizarre and in a way very dishonoring of his memory, to be honest. Nobody cares what I think about that. But I
Do you
think
want to talk about that?
mm, uh,
Okay.
eh. I mean, I don't understand it. Right? Like the thing is you want to say the harsh thing, but you want people to think you're nice. You want to make like racially aggressive, charged, horrible statements, but you don't want anybody to say that you're racist. You want to like do things with complete latitude and freedom, but then you don't want to be held accountable. That to me is not it's not honest. Listen, there are some things that I believe that the vast majority of people may disagree with me about. I'm not going to back off of it because you don't like what I said.
But can
And
I
to me,
ask?
that's the thing. That's the thing. Like, don't back off of it. If you believe it, just say it with your whole chest. But now that we're holding you accountable, or that people are printing it, this is not the time to be like, no, 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 no. He didn't say that. That's not what he meant. I find that very disappointing, and I think
You think people are
inconsistent with
saying
him.
that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I have heard 87 different presentations about how the thing that he said about black women not having the that's
Right.
not what he meant. He
Oh,
was talking about or when he said black pilots, if he gets on a plane, he that's not what he meant. You're taking it out of context. I've heard the phrase "you're taking it out of context" literally hundreds of times in the last couple weeks. So I think that people do want to change the record. And that's not anything new, right? We didn't build Confederate statues after the war. We built them decades later
right.
to
Oh,
terrorize people that were trying to move past the damage of the war. That's the American way. We love a
right.
good, solid,
Right.
healthy redaction. And
Right.
so
I mean, like,
watching
look
that
at
in
Abraham
real
Lincoln.
time, yeah,
Right. Right. Oh shit.
yeah,
Okay.
we just watched it in real time. We watched the story be morphed and changed, and now we're gonna have a holiday. Okay, like it was really weird to behold, because I think that he stood on business. He did say what he thought. And I this feels very strange and very weird to me. I said, when people called me after he died, and like I told you, Say nothing, because I feel about Charlie Kirk's murder the exact way I feel about George Floyd's murder. Nobody should be charged or made to be put on trial for their own murder. Nobody deserves to be brutally killed. Period. End of discussion. Like that's all. So when people call me, that's what I said. That's nobody deserves that. Nobody on earth deserves that. That was
But don't you
horrible.
think like that was just so Confederate statues go up a decade, 100 years
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
conflict. But
Yeah.
this happened days. And this is where like I do really challenge Coates
Mm-hmm.
and you on
Mm-hmm.
this, on why now is different. It's like selfishly, I feel like it's different because I want it to be different. I want us to like turn the page real quick. I want to see that
Mm-hmm.
in my lifetime. But it's all happening so fast
Yeah.
that
It's super fast.
I my passion is foreign policy. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? There's MAGA flags waving in Myanmar right now.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. And so to me, it feels a little scarier, but I
Mm-hmm.
also don't know if that's Ezra and I getting closer to that like additional ego death of y'all think you can actually do something.
Right. Or you think that it's up to you. There's
Right.
an egocentric kind of thing here that, if I just do my best, I can turn this thing around. And it's really why, it's Mark Zuckerberg thinking he's going to open up a school district. Sir, you've never run a school district. You don't know anything about this. It's this belief that, anything I believe I can make happen. And I love that for you. I love the optimism. I love that, but it's not it's the Easter bunny. It's Santa Claus. Like this is really hard work, right? So like, I think about, my muse is Harriet Tubman, and I think about like the Underground Railroad, right? So they're killing it. They're getting people out. They're making it across the Mason-Dixon line. They're pulling 3 people, then 5 people, then 2. Like the Underground Railroad is underway. You know what they do? They pass a law. Now it's not, you can't just get across the Mason-Dixon line. Now you got to get all the way to Canada. Ezra would have laid down and died. It would have been over, right? Like, oh,
But that's where I think most of the
we
leftists
have to negotiate. We have to negotiate with them and see if they, no, like you still have to run the railroad. And I think that's the difference between Coates and Klein, right? You still have to run the railroad. You still have to do the thing. The thing is going to get harder the more effective you get. It doesn't get easier, it gets harder. And I think that's why he was being so gentle with him, of like that is the seminal undergirding point to this, right? Like it's not like they would not have killed Martin Luther King Jr. if he had just said the right words, if he had made the right moves, if he had strategically done this instead of that. No, they were going to kill Martin Luther King Jr. Like it just is, like there is in fact evil in the world. In my book I say every story doesn't have a villain. But some stories do, Jenna. Some stories do, in fact, have a villain. And you have to understand, you still have to run your race. You still have to do the work. You still have to do the thing. And I think that's the point that Coates was making. It wasn't that this is hopeless or fatalistic or it's never going to work out. It was, even when you get slapped, even when you get knocked down, even when you get profoundly disappointed. Can you imagine when Black women stood by white women and help white women get the vote, and then Black women didn't get the vote, how that must have felt to them? Was that because they just made the wrong strategic decisions? Come on, friend. Like that's not why. Like there are other forces that stop even the best of people with the best of intentions from getting what they want in a light switch. It might be a dimmer, and we're not patient. We're not patient. And that's really what this is all about. We want to snap our fingers and we want this to all be over. And that's not what we got. That's not what's happening. And in our desire for that, We have to be very careful that we don't get enamored with evil. Don't get jealous of tactics that are unfair and cruel and nasty. I don't wish I could have the same, movements. I don't want the same movements. And so that may mean I don't get what they get. Okay. I can look back hundreds of years and I see them marked with victories. That's how I look at the entire world. I see them marked with victories because somebody did the step by step ugly work that didn't get honored, that didn't get appreciated, that didn't get acknowledged. And that's why I'm sitting here in Napa not drinking wine. Like somebody did that for me. And so it's disrespectful. It's deeply deeply disrespectful to dishonor that work and to think, and when things don't go your way, it must be because we're losers or failures or screw ups or we just did that wrong. Sometimes it just doesn't go your way, but you still got to move your butt, get up the next day, and get back to work. That's what Coach was trying to say. And I think he said it beautifully. Like I, and you know how I feel about this. Sometimes a conversation is a seed, and we need to let it be a seed and fodder for deeper thought. It may be months from now that it's like, wow, that really resonated. That really sat with me. It's how I built all of my work and all of the things that I do. There has to be a patience, there has to be a humility, and there has to be a ridiculous level of optimism. Ridiculous. Thank God somebody thought that you and I should be able to vote. They thought it 100 years before we got to vote, and they fought for it then. Like we can't, we can't be this weak. We can't be this. We can't be this vulnerable, this impatient, this wishy-washy, right? And that's why I study history. I thought it was weird when Ezra was like, we don't need to go back that far out. And I was like, no, you have to go back that far out. Otherwise, you'll think this is the end. This is not the end. This is chapter 17 in a 55 chapter book. This is nowhere near the end. So that's my pep talk for anybody that's listening to this. And I really believe it. This is not something, I'm not saying this like in a Pollyanna way. Like this is how I really move through the world. This is how I do the things that I do. This is how I get up. This is what I eat and breathe and live. All you could do is what you can do. All you can do is your work, your job, your giftedness brought to bear. That's all you can do, right? And it's not always going to work out, but you always have to work. You always have to do the work. And I think that Ezra is discouraged. He should call me. Call me, Ezra. I'll give you a pep talk. Call me, Ezra. I think he's discouraged. I think he's disappointed. I think he's impatient, and I think he's enamored. He's enamored, and I think that's a really difficult cocktail. And I thought the conversation was beautiful because it was a gentle, hey, think about this. Just consider that, in a way that I see few men engage with each other
Mhm.
and have like difficult conversation that could have been very ugly. I thought it was beautiful. And I hope that it's still reverberating. I think it is.
Natasha and Lashia, I see you in the Substack comments and so appreciate your comments, specifically the one around the more effective you are, the harder it gets, not the easier
It
it gets.
doesn't get easier. I wish that wasn't true. Man, I wish that wasn't true. I wish that wasn't true, but that is the truth. I have been the only woman or black person or first or only in almost every job I've ever had in my entire life. And people would say, "Oh my gosh, you're so lucky. How did you get here? How did you do it?" I was hazed so mercilessly. Some of the jobs were literal torture. Literal torture, right? The higher you get, the more effective you are, the bigger the opportunities. It gets harder, boo. It doesn't get easier. And so now we're at the point where we got to pay the toll. We got to pay the price. This is when you have to do the work. Cheering at the rally is not the work. This is the work, is finding, catalyzing people in your area to vote differently or to think about people differently, challenging people in that you actually know in relationship around the choices that they're making, and helping them to understand the harm. I had a beautiful conversation with somebody the other day, about when the president said they're eating the cats and dogs. Um, and we were talking about speech as violence. And he's, oh, speech is not violence. Speech is not violence. I said, I think it's I don't think it's as simple as all that. I think, is speech violence? No. But is it as simple as, is speech not violence? No. I think there's something in the middle. We may need another word. But this idea that the people that we're supposed to protect them, they live in the state. Their senator and their president said something that made schools get bomb threats. People couldn't go to work. There was vandalism of people's homes. People lost their jobs. It was a horrific chain of events. People don't even think about that today. We have 87 news cycles since then, right?
I don't
So
even
this,
remember Doge. Like, I don't, Elon
right.
who? Right.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, this is so much bigger. This is so much bigger. There's so many moving parts. It's simplistic to just discouragement. You don't have time for discouragement. And you don't have time to like think one thing is the thing. If you had done this, this had happened. We just don't have time for that kind of like weird analysis. I think that and this is philosophically what keeps me sane right now. I think we have been sold a bill of goods that the algorithms predict our behavior, right? They're tracking all of this data to predict our behavior. I don't think that's what's happening anymore. I think they are determining our behavior. They're choosing
Yeah.
our behavior. They're pushing us into this herd mentality. I saw it today. Somebody's talking about Bad Bunny performing at the halftime show. They never even heard of Bad Bunny. Why are you why are you so enamored or so passionate about somebody you never even heard of, right? He's the number one artist in the world. Last year they had somebody different. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they'd had all kinds of different acts. Why can't they have Bad Bunny? What they do is they find the four people that are pissed off about Bad Bunny and they run them on a loop and they feed it to every one of us so we can think half the country doesn't think it should be Bad Bunny. We are being manipulated, we are being rage farmed, and we all need to take a breath. I appreciated Ta-Nehisi taking a breath, taking his time, being gentle with his friend, having a conversation that other people could hear and think about and not be inflamed about, right? Not rage farmed, but actual deep person to person conversation. And from that perspective, I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was beautiful when you can be ugly and you choose not to be.
Oh,
I
God
always
damn it.
think that's beautiful. And I think it's more effective. I think it's more effective.
Denise. Okay. 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 You guys see? Um, I have two questions for you. There's Aisha, I apologize. I enunciated your name incorrectly. Uh, one question came from the chat, which I'm gonna pose, and then I want to put my question on top of it, which
Okay.
is someone asked, does it just get harder from here then? Right? Like, you and I feel like there's been a bunch of times that we've spent time together being like, oh, is this the last thrashes of a dying shark? Because they're always the most intense. And yet I know that, and this is where like I really feel like the two gentlemen, and I am calling out their gender in this conversation, missed that quick U-turn that could have really flown. I think it was, to me, the missed opportunity. I hear you on, like, they being gentle and taking the time, and it's gonna, and, like, Ezra's in, like, minute 1 of another whole new process for himself. But as we are being rage farmed, we've also been story farmed, right? Our stories about ourselves, whether it's been like the beliefs of our entitlement or what's owed to us or what it means to be American, or not the survival of the fittest, but the survival of the slickest. Like, all of those things are baked in, as somebody else referenced in the comments.
Mhm.
And this is where you and I still differ. And I think this is still a truth or a death that I'm not willing to embrace, which is, I believe that if not for the grace of God, I could be born into another family and have a certain life experiences that told me a very dramatically different story that the
Mhm.
algorithm now supports and lifts up. But my, like, North Star, which the most the people who have risked their lives for the greater good seem to be locked on to, which is, all of we are all the same. We are all wrestling with the same thing, that our humanity is the same, that, like, our greatest task in this life is to love ourselves enough so that we can love others. Baldwin said constantly, if as soon as white people stopped hating themselves, we would no longer have to find somebody else to hate, so we didn't have to hold up a mirror to
Mm.
ourselves. And I really feel like, as Ezra was desperate to politicize the conversation, and Charlie Kirk, and what's happening on the right, and what the left isn't doing in response to it, is that there isn't a individual accountability exercise that anybody is raising their hand to do.
Mm.
And the thing that you have taught me more than anything, which I also think Coates was saying to Ezra, was, this is long.
Mhm.
And the biggest, most important thing that you can do to resist is lift up and cultivate your joy with other people, right?
Mhm.
Joy is an act of resistance. Like, that's been drilled into my head, but I haven't really come into that chapter of my growing until recently.
Mm.
But only, like, since the past 9 months, 10 months, 11 months. Exactly. And so it strikes me that, like, I wanted there to be this left turn back on, like, the biggest left voice, or U-turn back on the biggest left voice, Ezra being like, "Are you are you too enamored with evil and the power that that has?" Because that's a human thing. Every single person gets lured by power and
Mhm.
fame and lust and greed. I mean, they're not listed in the Bible and all of the other scripture for no reason.
That's right.
I mean, that's what all tonight is supposed to be about, and all tomorrow for the Jews, being like, when were you talking shit about people? When were you judging? When did you say the thing you didn't need to? That's what the
Mhm.
next 24 hours is. And it's to forgive ourselves. And to me, that feels so much more fucking powerful than any left oriented strategy around, like, regerrymandering, or let's get more pro-life candidates into Oregon. I don't know. So does it just get harder from here? Hey, Jason, where are you in the world?
It doesn't it it gets harder and it gets easier, and then it gets harder, and then it gets easier, and then it gets harder, and then it gets easier. Like, y- y- again, here I come with my ridiculous history, but it really does help. I promise. If you added up and quantified the value of the slave trade in the United States of America in today's dollars, it would be $42 trillion. Trillion, not billion, not million, $1 trillion. How did a system that undergirded the entire establishment of the United States, that funded every industry, some of which you can trade companies back right now, all the way back to slavery, how did that system fall? How did it fall? At the time, it must have felt impossible. It must have felt hopeless, at the very least improbable. But it did fall, right? And so then fast forward, Civil War, terrible. Fast forward, Black president, amazing. Like that, it's gonna be up and down and up and down and up and down. All you can do is gird your loins, people. All you could do is ride the wave, is figure out. I'm always struck. One of the most beautiful things about slavery. Can I give you like one beautiful thing about slavery? In the midst of that horror, the torture, the brutalization, the dehumanization, they still jumped the broom. They couldn't get married. They couldn't get, like, nobody would do a service for them. They went and got a broom. They put a broom down, held hands, and they jumped over the broom, and then they were married. That is finding joy in the most horrific of circumstances. So can we do it with our Lululemon and our Starbucks? I
Shut
think we
up.
can. I, I think we can. I think we can. I think we can. I think we can. I don't think this is harder than any other time that things have been hard. I just don't. I don't think it is. And I think that kind of certainty is what levels me out. So I don't go too high and I don't go too low. I don't take everything to heart. I don't receive everything that is being poured into me. There's some stuff that just bounces off because I know it's not real. This is a season. And there's a great Bible verse, to everything there is a season. Everything has its place. And so this is a season that we're in right now. And the challenge is, how are we rising to it? How are we rising to it? Are we discouraged? I have had to really work on speaking life into people. My daughter's 31. I talked to her and her group of her friends. They don't want to have kids. They're not sure if they can get married. Like, they don't think they'll ever buy a house. They don't think they'll ever have anything. Like, they're scared to start a business. And I was just like, wait a minute. Has my generation spoken fear and loss and lack? Have I spoken that into young people? Am I lifting people up? Am I giving them hope? Am I encouraging them? Or am I saying, oh my God, ain't it awful? We'll never get through this. This is terrible. That's not true. That's just not true. I don't believe it and I don't live like that. And I think that if we could figure out how to not be so susceptible, and not to be so fragile, not to be so you cannot. What's that beautiful quote? The lion doesn't react to the barking of the dog. We are reacting to the barking of every single dog, things we don't even care about, things that we're not even passionate about, like get front billing, top billing in our lives. And I'm just really trying to focus what's actually important. I know you know what's going on in every news. You know what Pete Hegseth said to the generals, but what's happening at the school down the street from your house? Do you know? So there's a work, a habit, a bias towards work that I want people to adopt. That is harder when you're getting barraged with all of this rage bait, but the work still needs to happen and it needs to continue regardless. So yes, whoever asked that question, it does get harder, but then it gets better. And then it probably gets harder again. Humans are going to human.
Mhm. But if if we if we raised ourselves and each other
Mhm.
to be more human centric, the harm we caused wouldn't be as maybe.
I don't know. I think there's always evil. There's always hatred. Like you said it earlier, there's a reason that lust and guilt and envy and strife and like adultery is not new. Like all of these things, they've existed and they're going to exist. There's always going to be people that prey on the kindness of others. I can't wipe that away for
Yeah, but
you.
isn't okay, right. I know I'm tracking. And hey, Master Liberty, I'm thrilled to see you in the comments tonight. I know because we talk about like, oh, like we have all this stuff embedded in our like we are just for simplicity's sake, we are all programmed with all the deadly sins. What are they called? I don't even know what they're called.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I love about what the Bible said, or at least my interpretation of it, or at least how the Obama administration branded it around my brother's keeper, that it
Mhm.
is our job to hold each other with love in theoretically the way that Coates did with Ezra in helping define the boundaries, which has been a lot of what you have offered me over the years. And as you just saw, Denise sort of just like pick me up, just put a little bit more wind underneath my wings, or in my sails, whatever. Um, but I do, but I so if we all have that baked in us, isn't it on us to hold each other and assimilate and like raise each other to be different and better? Here's something that it feels so important for me. And I love that you love history and but not in the same way that like I feel like a lot of the left talks about history, like about
Mm.
McCarthyism and like the Red Scare and like you guys like no one can define socialism or communism. People can barely define democracy. Like we are not that part to me isn't helpful.
Right.
Prehistory is helpful. Like pre 2025 years ago is very helpful
Mhm.
when there were
Mhm.
so many thriving egalitarian societies of which we don't know much about because history has largely been told through the eyes of European, primarily British white male archaeologists.
Mhm.
But it is like controversial about how many indigenous people lived on Turtle Island, the place that we currently call the United States. And the number is like somewhere between 900,000 and 100 million. It's that big of a swath, right?
Mhm.
And then there's these footsteps in Arizona that are 250,000 years old, right? So like we operate in the like 2000 years. Like it just started with the Abrahamic religions. 250,000-year-old footsteps
Right.
in Arizona. They just found a skull in China that is 1 million years old. It's not a Neanderthal, it is a Homo sapien, 1 million year old skull. And we're operating in like 2000 year
Mhm.
increments. But I still, my hunch has me believing that we did better before our stories lifted up power structures. So
Mm.
Master Liberty offered a comment. He said, ebb and flow, that is the nature of power and suffering.
Yeah.
Power, the way that I interpret it, is capitalistic power, title power, resource power, power over people. It's the strongman theory. You're either dominating or being dominated. There's only two positions. You're either on top or you're on the bottom.
Yeah.
And as Denise pointed out, that the $42 trillion, oh, did you say valuation? I'm very uncomfortable with that language
Yeah.
of the formerly enslaved, laying the bedrock for the financial security of the United States. Now, what happened here is we developed the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and we pegged every single currency around the world to the dollar.
Yeah.
The entire economic structure of the world revolves around the US dollar that was built on the back of formerly enslaved.
Mhm.
That is our definition of power today. There's no fucking way that we went from a million years to 2000 years ago with the same definition of power that I think we have today.
Oh yeah, no way. No way.
So I just don't but I so I don't wanna make excuses for I don't wanna make excuses for, like, "Oh, this is how it always happens." Maybe not, because 'cause we've survived a million years, and I think we're on the brink.
The brink of
I
what?
don't know. I implosion, and I would like
We're
us to
not on
hurry
the
up.
we're not on the brink of implosion. We're not. We're not. That would be easier. We're just to the point where we have to do the
That is Jesus
work.
branding. I
Yeah.
do wanna actually call out somebody. Amanda, thank you so much. I know that that is what Jesus said, and I also know that Obama lifted up a great program on My Brother's Keeper, which I
Yeah.
think went really well, so I am clear on the source of
Yeah.
that. 7
Well,
deadly sins.
and the
Aisha,
truth and the truth of it is like it's like I love the way you say it's for us to lift each other up and to support each other. And some people are going to do that and some people aren't. I
and
mean like
that
is it
that that
and
and that's
it's
the thing. That's the line.
that's
That's
just
the
it.
line.
Some people are
That's
and
the
some
line.
people aren't. And so because people aren't doesn't mean that doesn't remove my responsibility for me to do what I'm supposed to do. Right. And that's
Yep.
circling back to Ezra. Ezra's looking over at the people who aren't and saying, wow, they look like they're having so much fun. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't get to abdicate what our responsibility is. You know, you don't get to throw out groups of people that we care about and support and care for. You don't get to dehumanize people because it looks like they're having fun over there.
Well,
Right. You don't
they
get
made
to
it look
abdicate.
easy. It's
They
a
made
lot
it look
easier.
all you needed was a couple billionaires to fund it. That's all it needed. You know what I mean? Like it's not this isn't real, right? But what is real is the very necessary work that has to be done. And it's not glamorous, it's not fast, it's not always sexy, it doesn't always feel good. You're not always going to be on top. And I wish I thought about this a lot. I thought about this a lot today. Like, you know, am I operating out of like a I don't know, like out of like a trauma, right? Have I been socialized to accept failure? Because that's kind of what Ezra kind of suggested. Well, that's a fatalistic view, and if you pan back out to whatever, whatever. But I don't think so. I think that's just the truth. And I have all the receipts. I have
Mhm.
hundreds of years of receipts to show you ebb and flow, back and forth. That even in our relationship, like I said, when George Floyd died, you and I had this exact conversation. I was like, yep, it's not going to last. Every Black person I know was like, yeah, this isn't going to last. It's going to be about 3 years. And then they're going to start having a massive backlash because that's what has always happened. Right. So it's not fatalism, it's realism, it's honesty, but wrapped up in this like profound belief we can still make a difference. People with far less than we have right now have always made a difference. And that's what has given us the position that we sit in right now. And so it's tragic. It's tragic to lose faith and to lose heart and to start throwing your values out the window and start like, like that's beneath our privilege. That's beneath us. We can do better than that. And I loved this conversation between these two men because it felt like an exhortation to better works, right? Like, I want you to do better. Not, hey, 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 you need to do it wasn't a scolding. It was a true calling in that I thought was beautiful and thoughtful and intentional. And we're so used to everything being an MMA fight, right? Debate as sport, right? Conversation as blood sport that we don't I hope that we can all see the beauty in the conversation, the patience, the generosity. I really try in the conversations that I have to just have a spirit of generosity that lets the other person off of the mat. I don't need to knock you down and hold you down. I want you to get up off the mat because I need you to work alongside me. And I think he did that in a really lovely way. And I'm on the edge of my seat. I don't know what Ezra does next. I hope it's I hope
Calling Denise
he
Hamilton.
call me Ezra, I'm here. But I hope it is more hopeful because he sounded defeated. He
Where I
sounded
am.
he
Yeah.
sounded broken. And it's like, we don't have time to be broken. Come on, let's go. Rally, go get a massage, run a couple laps, get
Go
some
to
good
Napa.
nutrition, get some sleep, go to Napa, don't drink wine. And just like you have to find the joy, you have to jump the broom in the middle of the hardship. You have to figure out how to not jump into every fight you're invited to. You have to find a way to find your work and to be committed. Just have that like laser commitment and focus and understand that there's people who don't want you to do your work. There's people who don't want what you want. Like, and that feels like so obvious to me, but it felt like that's what Ta-Nehisi was saying the whole time. Sir, there's a lot of people that don't want what you want. So that means sometimes you're gonna bang into each other and it's gonna go this way and maybe it's gonna go that way, but you don't just let go because you're not winning, because it's not going your way, and you don't turn on the people that have been lifting you and pushing you. That's not what we're gonna do, friend. Come on now. So all of us, the reason I always say they only ban books because they understand the power of books, right? I've been invited to speak at colleges and they send me a list of words I can't say. And they're sending me because they know the power of words, right? So while they're telling you this is no good, this doesn't matter, this is useless, they're doing everything in their power to suppress it and to silence and to quiet and to hide and to move and to dismantle. Are we just going to let them? Are we just going to lay down and die? No, that's not what we're going to do. We're just going to keep
No.
doing the work. No, we're going to keep doing the work. We now it used to be getting across the Mason-Dixon line. Now we got to get to Canada. Okay, how do we get to Canada? Anybody got a map? How are we going to do it? That's where we are. And it's harder and we don't like it. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you have been committed to stamina. You have been committed to that idea of like, we actually don't know the stamina that's required. And there's a bunch of folks saying, we don't have time to be broken and let's fucking go. Um, and so really echoing your sentiments tonight. And I will say to close out this conversation on the evening of Kol Nidre, when Jews are asking forgiveness of God and requesting that he write their name in the book of life for the next year, on
Mm.
the same day that one of our global treasures has left us, Jane Goodall,
Oh.
who was so laser focused on her thing, which was the relationship between humans and the natural world, obviously,
Mm.
specifically through her stories with the chimpanzees in primarily Uganda, I think it was. And she understood the direction she was supposed to go, and she never stopped rowing. And I think sometimes for us on the left, we get baited by all the things. I was not really kidding when I said, wait, what was Doge again? Like I don't. And and I think it is part of our work now to really understand what our highest and best use is. And it might not actually be the thing that we thought it was going to be or that we wanted to be or the thing that the ego thought it would be or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
And we can't get baited by that
Mm.
and like the hot and flashy flash in the pan thing. Um and just stay focused like Jane Goodall was on like those chimps in Uganda because the 100 conversations that had to happen around it ended up being the much bigger and broader things that if we can just figure out what our thing is, just pick up an
Yeah.
oar and row.
Yeah. And understand. profoundly how precious your energy is. How precious. It sounds so corny and so trite. You don't have time to be arguing with anybody about Bad Bunny at the halftime at the Super Bowl. Like, it doesn't matter at all. You don't care. I want us to normalize saying, we do not care. You know what? I don't like the speech that Pete Hegseth made to the military admirals and generals, whatever. That's for them to tackle. They are big, bad, strong, grown. Like, let them fight that out. Mind your business. What is your business? I guarantee you, everybody listening to this conversation right now has some business that is going unattended to because we are responding to every rage. Every time the bat signal goes out, we run out into the streets, and that is not productive. Your energy is so finite. It's so precious. So precious. What are you going to apply it to? Make sure that it's something that actually matters, that actually moves the needle forward, right? And do it with grace, do it with kindness, do it with generosity, but do it with conviction. Be clear about what you care about and what you're doing, and it'll all work out. I promise.
Shit. Okay, whatever. Denise said it's gonna be fine. So on that note, Denise Hamilton, happy 55th birthday. Boy, are
Yeah.
we just so lucky that you came when you did.
Thank you, my friend.
A quick thank you to the production team behind the scenes. So many comments of people saying this is exactly what we needed. Thank you for letting me be a part of this conversation. It fed me. This is a one of many conversations that we're facilitating here on the Land of End with amazing folks from around the world, just like Denise, trying to split the hairs because I'm in a constant trying to figure out what the hell I can do now for the sake of all of us. So thank you everyone who is on all the Instagram handles, on Substack, on YouTube, on Twitch. And everyone's wishing you a happy birthday. So I will
Thank
echo their
you.
sentiments. Denise, thank you so much.
Thank you.